So, our topic is discussion today, goods market, international trade and simple Keynesian model. So basically it is just explanation of the simple Keynesian model from the perspective of an open economy. So here you have to remember that simple Keynesian model is basically it is a fixed price model. So mainly the background of Keynesian economy was the Great Depression of 1930s, and that's why whenever we consider an economy, we will consider the price as constant because of there is the existence of excess capacity and huge volume of unemployment in the economy. So in this case, we find that in simple Keynesian model, if we see Y and aggregate demand supply in the horizontal axis and price in the vertical axis, the supply curve becomes perfectly elastic unless the economy reaches the full employment. But according to Keynes, in long run everything is dead. So full employment may be achieved in the long run, but in short run there is unemployment in the economy, and the aggregate demand here determines the level of output and employment. So this is the main feature of simple Keynesian model, in which we consider that price is constant. That means the perfectly elastic supply in the economy. Now, if we consider the case of an open economy, that is a little bit different from the closed economy, because in open economy one feature is that the spending of domestic citizens is not equal to the spending on domestic goods. Because in open economy we find the people spend on some domestic people spend on some goods which are not domestically produced, and as well as there are some domestic goods, some people, the spending on domestic goods, there some of them come from the foreign source. So here that's why whenever we set the equation, the national income identity becomes a GDP identity becomes YN. I am giving N because I am taking the nominal values. So YN equals to C plus ICN plus IN plus GN plus Xn minus N. So this is called C plus I plus G. This is called domestic absorption A. And Xn minus Mn is called the trade balance. So actually, national income or the aggregate output level here, we consider that aggregate level output or aggregate spending depends upon two things, that absorption and the trade balance. So this is the main difference between open economy and the closed economy. Now, domestic absorption, if we see, that once we set the entire function here, so the equilibrium condition in the goods market will be given as Yn equals to Cn bar. That means autonomous consumption in nominal units plus B into Yn, when B is the marginal propensity to consume and its property is 0 less than B less than 1, plus Gn public expenditure plus we give it is also autonomous in nature, and plus xn minus n. So if we take this is the C plus G plus I, this is the autonomous consumption. So here what we see here, that the absorption, this depends upon two things. Number one, the public expenditure, and second is the total aggregate level of output or national income, whatever we say, because we are considering here a fixed price system. So in this case, output and income are considered to be the same. Now we come to the next part. This is very important, that trade balance. So we write it Tn equals to xn minus Mn. So xn stands for the total export earning and Mn stands for the total import expenditure. So we have to remember that we have to use here in nominal terms. So to explain it, we can write it. This is given as P into X. So P is the average price level of the domestic economy multiplied by the total volume of export. One more thing we have to understand here, that commodities exported by domestic country is the commodity imported by the foreign country. So instead of X, we can write here that P into M star minus E is the exchange rate multiplied by P star, the foreign price level, and this is M, the volume of import. So Xn and Mn are in nominal terms, whereas M star and M, they are in real terms. So if we want to take the real value, we have to do Tn by P. We have to divide the trade balance by the price level. So equals to, we can write it T, and T equals to, we can write Pm star divided by P minus E into P star by P into N. So Pt will be dismissed, and we can write M star minus Q into N. So this Q is called E into P star by P. This is called real exchange. So real exchange rate is actually the amount of export, amount of exportable that a country has to sell to get 1 unit of import. So we can tell it the relative price of import in terms of export. So if Q rises, that means import has become dearer in terms of export. So now if we go little bit in detail about this trade balance function M minus Qm, we can write here that the trade balance is a function of the trade balance, we can write in this way, M star, which is a function of real exchange rate and the income level of the foreign country, minus Q into M, which is also determined by Q and Y. So here what we see, if Y star rises, M star will rise. That means if the national income of the foreign country will rise, our volume of export will rise. And if Q rises, that means domestic products, the foreign domestic exports become cheaper in terms of the foreign exports. The foreign import will increase, domestic export will rise. Similarly, here also our input, how much our country will import, that will depend upon two things. Number one is the real exchange rate, and number two is the national level of national income in our country. So if national income rises, import will rise, but if Q Q rises, our import will fall because imports will become dearer in terms of our export. Now one more thing we have to understand, that Q is a function of E into P star by P. So here what we can consider, that P star P is constant because we are considering a simple Keynesian model. If we are considering here a fixed exchange rate regime, so E is also constant, and P star is the price level of foreign country, which is given as exogenous, and Y star also exogenous. So from here we can write the trade balance in this way, that P equals to P bar, which is an autonomous trade balance which depends upon Q and the income of the foreign country, minus M into Y. So M stands for what? M stands for marginal propensity to import in domestic country. The simple thing is that as our national income rises, we import more. So as we import more, that will have a negative impact on our trade balance. So our trade balance is inversely related to our national income. So from here we can establish a relationship between the national income of a country and trade balance. So in horizontal axis we are measuring Y, and in the vertical axis we are measuring P. So this is the curve. This TT curve indicates the trade balance curve, and we see that as national income rises, trade balance will be falling. So inverse relationship between national income and trade balance. And here OT is the autonomous trade balance. So if we see here in this equation, if P equals to T bar minus MY, and if Y equals to 0, then T equals to T bar. So this is called the autonomous trade balance here. And this is the point at which trade balance becomes 0. Now we will consider another thing, that is the hoarding function. So what is hoarding? So hoarding stands for the accumulation of domestic asset. So hoarding is given as H equals to Y minus A. So hoarding stands for national income minus total absorption. So that means there is the accumulation of assets on behalf of the entire country. So basically it is some kind of monetary asset. One thing we have to consider here, right now we are considering the simplest model in which we are not considering any kind of international trade related to services or international capital movements or other monetary movements. So here that's why our external balance mainly relates to our trade balance in this country. So now we will consider the hoarding function. So first we see the absorption. So absorption is what? C plus I plus G. So here previously we used the monetary terms, now we will consider it in the real terms. So real terms will be given as the C bar plus dy plus I is constant, we give it I bar, and G. So autonomous consumption, A is given as C bar plus I bar plus G plus dy. So C bar plus I bar plus G, three are autonomous in nature. So we can write A equals to A bar plus dy. So this is our absorption function. So whenever we will do it, Y minus absorption, national income minus absorption, we will get the hoarding. So what we see here, Y equals to, hoarding equals to Y minus A bar plus dy. So we can write here hoarding equals to Y minus A bar minus dy or minus A bar plus 1 minus b into y. So we can write here H equals to minus A bar plus small s into y. So small s is nothing but 1 minus b equals to s. This is called marginal propensity to save. So now in one side, what we see that y equals to a plus t, and from which we can write that y minus a equals to t. But before that, we have to go to this hoarding function. So hoarding function, how can we draw? There is a relationship between y and h. So what kind of relationship? If y equals to 0, h equals to minus a. And second thing what we see, that if we differentiate, dh, dy will be equal to positive. So hoarding starts from a negative space and it rises as the national income rises. So we will get a curve like this. This is curve is given as hoarding curve. So what we see here, this is the point at which the hoarding curve intersects the trade balance curve. Because from here what we see, y minus hoarding equals to y minus a and y minus a equals to the trade balance. So from which this intersection will give us the equilibrium level of national income, YE, and equilibrium trade balance. So here what we see that at the point of equilibrium, the trade balance is negative. So we can find it mathematically also. So our equilibrium condition is what? H equals to P. So H equals to, we can write minus A bar plus SY equals to P bar minus MY. So from here we can derive the equilibrium level of national income by using the hoarding and trade balance, and it is what? So SY plus MY equals to P bar plus A bar. So what we can write? Y into, so S plus M into Y equals to P bar plus A bar, or Y equals to P bar plus A bar divided by S plus M. Marginal propensity to save plus marginal propensity to import. And here what we see, 1 by S plus M is called that the open economy income multiplier in simple Keynesian model. So this is called open economy income multiplier in this. So what we find here actually, the equilibrium level of Y depends upon three things. So four things basically. One is the autonomous trade balance, autonomous absorption, marginal propensity to save, and marginal propensity to import. And what we see here, that Y depends, is related, directly related to the value of T bar, autonomous trade balance. It is directly related to the value of A bar, autonomous absorption. So these two are the components of injection. So higher trade balance means higher injection. Higher autonomous absorption means higher injection. So if P bar or A bar rises, national income will rise. Other things remaining constant. Similarly, if you see savings, S is what? Marginal propensity to save. So savings is a leakage. So if higher proportion is saved, that is the higher leakage. So that will reduce the national income. And also M stands for marginal propensity to import. So higher the value of M, higher proportion of income will be spent on import. So that means higher leakage. So that's why we find that Y is directly related to autonomous trade balance, directly related to autonomous absorption, and inversely related to marginal propensity to save, and inversely related to marginal propensity to import. Now we will consider the case, the government policies here. Just see here that this is the equilibrium level of output at which, or equilibrium level of national income at which we see that the negative trade balance. So I said earlier, whenever I started the theory, I said that Keynesian theory is based on the problem of unemployment. Now, there is a quite natural that this is the problem, or this is the situation at which we find that there is an underemployment equilibrium. So if we see that if YF is the full employment level of equilibrium here, YF. So our equilibrium is definitely an underemployment equilibrium. So see here, in this case, what we see, the country is suffering from two problems. First problem is the unemployment, and second problem is the trade balance. So if we want to address one by one individually, then what do you think? Let us consider that first, if we consider that the government is trying to adopt any policy to reduce the unemployment first. So in this situation, what we can find? I can find that can worsen the trade balance here. So first, let us think about the unemployment problem and how the government wants to solve it. So here, the only thing we can consider is the expansionary fiscal policy, because we are not considering the money market here. So expansionary fiscal policy means the public expenditure will increase. So we have to find out, if the public expenditure increases here, how will it affect the employment and output or national income, and how would it affect the trade balance here? So first, if we write the equation y equals to C bar plus I plus G plus dy plus P bar minus my. This is our equilibrium condition, commodity market equilibrium condition. So if the government increases the public expenditure, what will happen? So dy equals to dg plus b dy minus m into dy. So what can we write here? Dy minus b into dy plus m into dy equals to dg. So if we take dy as common, 1 minus b plus m equals to dg, or dy equals to 1 divided by 1 minus b plus m into dg, and 1 minus b equals to S, so we can write S plus M into dg. So whenever the public expenditure rises, the national income of the country will rise. But what will be the impact on the trade balance? So just let us check the trade balance here. Trade balance equals to what we get? T minus M into Y. So dt equals to minus m into dy So if we replace this dy by the value of the multiplier, what can we find? dt equals to minus m into 1 divided by s plus m into dg. So dt by dg equals to minus m into s plus m. So definitely an increase in the public expenditure will definitely increase the national income, but it will worsen the balance of trade scenario. So just if we see that there is an increase in public expenditure, that means the hoarding curve will shift rightward. So if we see that here what we find, that y rises from y to yb dash. It is moving towards the full employment equilibrium, but that causes an increase in the trade deficit of the country. So here, public expenditure, increase in public expenditure is good to reduce the unemployment problem, but it is bad from the perspective of the trade balance, trade deficit. So it worsens the external position of the country. And now we are considering a fixed exchange rate regime. So under this situation, whenever there is a trade balance, so trade balance will create excess demand for foreign exchange in the domestic market. And the central bank has to operate here. So whenever the central bank will operate here through open market operation, what we will find? We will find that the stock of international reserve will decline. So the central bank can't afford this type of trade balance for a long time. So along with increasing the level of output and employment, the central bank also has to think about the controlling it. The government has to think about controlling the trade balance. Now, so trade balance, what you see here, whenever the domestic absorption is more than domestic production, it causes a negative trade balance. So here we have, the government has two policies here. So number one is either to reduce the public expenditure, which is called, so here, so whenever we are finding a trade deficit, so trade deficit causes a decline in the stock of international reserve of the central bank. The central bank position will be bad and we cannot afford it for a long time. Open market operation cannot be applied for a long time. So there is one thing that the government can take loan from outside. But maximum of the countries, they don't want to take loan from external debt, go for external debt, because somehow that creates some problem at the decision making of the government. The lender country may try to impose some conditions on the debtor country, so they don't want to. So here the other two policies are, number one is that expenditure reducing policy. So expenditure reducing means what? Somehow reduce the public expenditure. So that means what? Again the hoarding curve will shift upward. But expenditure reducing will solve the trade balance problem, that BOT deficit. But there is a problem but there is a problem that decreasing public expenditure will also reduce the aggregate demand. So there will be increase in the unemployment. Second policy is called the policy which is called the expenditure switching policy. To switch the expenditure in favor of domestic goods. And here the most famous policy in a fixed exchange rate regime is called devaluation, to switch the expenditure in favor of domestic goods. So just let us consider it's better to explain it with the help of an example. But devaluation means what? First is the exchange rate rises. So if the exchange rate rises, the domestic commodity become E rises means what? E into P star by given the value of P star by P, this will rise. That means Q will rise. So foreign commodity will be cheaper in terms of our domestic commodity. And domestic commodities, foreign commodity will be dearer in terms of our domestic commodity, and our domestic commodity will be cheaper in terms of the foreign currency. So just see here, let us consider that trade between US and UK. So let us consider right now the exchange rate is 1.5 pound per USD, and price of US export is $20. Price of UK export is pound 10 pound. So right now the price of this US export, if we convert it to pound, what we have to do? We have to divide it by, multiply it by 0.5. So 0.5 pound per dollar. So it will be equals to, whenever it will be equivalent to how much pounds? 20 into 0.5, so it is equals to 10 pound. So the price of US export in Britain is 10 pound. And similarly, price of UK export $10. So that means it will be 10 pound. So it will be equal to 10 divided by 0.5 equals to, that means $20 in US. Now if we consider that UK is going for a devaluation of its domestic currency, and from 5 now we consider that E equals to 0.8 pound per dollar. So the same commodity, US export, whose price was $20, now it will price will be 20 into 0.8 equals to 16 pound in US. And UK export, what will be its price? 10 by 0.8. So it will be, so what we see here, as Britain announces a devaluation, so what will happen? The US product will be dearer in UK. So from 10 it rises to 16, and UK products will be cheaper in US. From $20 to it becomes $12.5. So what will happen? Here the British citizens will substitute the foreign US product by their domestic product, and the demand for British product will increase in USA. So what we'll see, in one hand export earning will increase, on the other hand import expenditure will decrease. So what we see here, the balance of trade will increase. So here what we will see, that the balance of trade, so this is called the expenditure switching. But expenditure switching, we have to consider that expenditure switching will be possible, will be able to improve the trade balance only if and only if one condition is fulfilled, and that is called famous Marshall-Turner condition. So how is the condition? Let us start with the trade balance equation. T equals to T bar minus T equals to M star minus Q into M. So if we consider the balanced trade, what we see? P equals to 0. And what we see? QM equals to M star, or M equals to M star by Q, or we also take it 1 divided by M equals to Q by M star. Now if we differentiate this equation, so if we say that, see that there is a devaluation, that means Q will also increase. So our condition is that dt dq that should be greater than 0. So let's differentiate it. So dm star divided by dq minus q into dm dq minus m, that should be greater than 0. So if we take 1 by q as common, so from here what can we write? dm star dq into q minus q into dm dq into q minus m into q, that is greater than. Now we'll take one more problem, that is m star. So m star by q, then we can, inside bracket we can write m star minus so here what we see? We have found that q by m star equals to 1 by m. So we can replace this q by m star by 1 by m. Now, so inside the bracket, what do we find? M star by q. Now we'll just make a manipulation, that is dm star by dq into m by m, into q by m star plus minus of dm dq into q by m minus mq equals to, we have already got that mq equals to m star if it is 0. M star minus qm equals to 0. Now here we can write qm equals to m star. So we can write here 1. Minus 1 greater than 0. Now, inside the third bracket, what we see here? dm star by dq into q by m. The change in foreign import divided by real exchange rate multiplied by real exchange rate by the original foreign import. So this is nothing but the elasticity of demand for import in foreign country. Plus, inside this, if the domestic exchange rate, if the real exchange rate rises, domestic import will fall. So that's why we have given a negative symbol here. So this is nothing but the elasticity of demand for import in our domestic country. So minus 1 is greater than 0. So the product of multiplication of two variables is greater than 0, and we know that m star is positive. M star is the volume of import which can never be negative. Q is the real exchange rate which can never be negative. So this bracket, whatever, this will also be negative, positive. So if this is positive, this will also be positive. So we can write pi gamma star plus gamma minus 1 is greater than 0, or gamma star plus gamma greater than 1. So this is known as famous Marshall-Lerner condition. So the Marshall-Lerner condition says that if the sum of price elasticities of demand for import in domestic country and price elasticity of demand for import in foreign country, if the sum is greater than 1, that means devaluation will be successful to improve the trade balance of any country. Okay, so from here, what we can see that the m star by q is greater than 0. Okay. So if we write that dt by dq equals to m star by q into gamma star plus gamma minus 1. This is greater than 0. So dt equals to what? dq into m star by q into gamma star plus gamma minus 1. So this is greater than 0, this is greater than 0. So dt will be also positive. Okay. Now, what do we find? That y equals to a bar plus by plus t bar minus my. So, just once more. So dy equals to b dy plus dt t bar minus m into dy. So dy into 1 minus b plus m equals to dt bar. And dt bar equals to what? What can we write? dt bar we can write here that dq into m star by q gamma star plus gamma minus 1. So dy by dq will also be equals to what can we write? That m star by q into gamma star plus gamma minus 1 whole divided by s plus m. So numerator is positive, denominator is positive. We can say that if the real exchange rate rises, that means for devaluation, the national income of the country will also rise. So devaluation here acts as a strategy to increase both employment and trade balance. So just see once more, we can check this curve. So if we check this curve, hoarding and trade balance curve now, this is my hoarding curve. This is my trade balance curve, this is the equilibrium. So, what we see here, YE and TE. So now if there is a devaluation, there will be a rightward shift of this curve because autonomous trade balance will increase. So if we see it here, so devaluation here not only improves the trade balance but also increases the national income of the country here. So in this case, instead of adopting an expansionary fiscal policy, will increase definitely it will increase the employment level, but at the same time it will cause an increase in the budget trade deficit. But contrary to this, if we can adopt a policy of devaluation, what we can see, the trade balance also improves, and on the other hand, there will be improvement in the employment scenario. One more thing the government can do here, the government can take a policy mix. That one hand, we consider there is this is the trade balance curve, this is the hoarding curve. So what the government can do, in one hand government can increase the hoarding, on the other hand increase the public expenditure. So hoarding curve shifts rightward, H to H1. On the other hand, the government can also adopt a devaluation. At the same time, the expansionary fiscal policy as well as devaluation policy, so that can improve the both the trade balance and the national income of the country. But devaluation has one problem, that is that the other country can also respond to it by devaluation. So other country also devalues the currency and there will be a currency war. That is another possibility. Okay? So it's all ends here. The next part we will discuss about the ISLM model in